Hello and welcome to another edition of Sree's Sunday New York Times Read Along. My name is Neil Parekh. I am the executive producer and guest host. Our guest today is Jarrett Adams, a top criminal defense and civil rights attorney. He is the author of Redeeming Justice: From Defendant to Defender: My Fight for Equity on Both Sides of a Broken System. Jarrett's story, and we'll hear more about it later, is that he was wrongfully convicted at the age of 17 of rape. He was exonerated 10 years later. He got a law degree and is now fighting for justice for others who have been wrongfully convicted. Our host, of course, is Sri Srinivasan, the Marshall Loeb Professor at the Stony Brook School of Journalism, co-founder of Digimentors, a digital and virtual events consultancy. And again, my name is Neil Parekh. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and YouTube. And a special shout out to Jarrett Adams followers on Twitter and Facebook. We're live on his pages as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like, please comment, please share. Please let us know where you're watching from. We'll welcome people who are watching and look at who has checked in so far. Jonathan Borstein sends greetings from the East Village. Sujana Chandrasekhar, Dr. Chandrasekhar, one of the hosts of She's on Call, is joining us from LA 3 hours earlier than when she usually joins us. Doug Levy, another early riser from the West Coast, from the Bay Area, is joining us as well. Doug Levy is saying it should be an interesting show today, as usual. Absolutely. We're very much looking forward to today's conversation. My mom is joining from Hastings. Hi, Mom. How you doing? Thank you so much for joining, as always. Eileen Hudson is joining from South Carolina. Eileen, thank you. And Ted Coltman is joining from Washington, D.C. Our friend Diane Stefani is joining from Margate, New Jersey. Diane, thank you so much for introducing us to Jarrett. We really appreciate it. We are looking forward to this conversation. There's Rosetta Hamilton joining from Michigan, and one of our producers, Paula Kiger, joining from Tallahassee, Florida. Every week, we look at the New York Times. We talk about what's in the paper. We talk about the graphics, the layout, and design. But we also have interesting guests and talk about their career, their story, their new project. And today, of course, we will have Jarrett Adams join us. Again, I wanted to give a shout out to Stefan Kaplan joining from Ramsey, New Jersey. Stefan is the host of the Spin It Social Hour. Had a great show yesterday, live from Photoville in New York. It was a pleasure to help produce that show. Check him out on at Spin It Social on all channels. So we are going to get going in just a moment. I'm going to first bring on our host, Sri Srinivasan, to say hello. Sri, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So happy to see you and see our community that we've built almost over 6 years now. You've been with us for about 3 years,
Even longer.
And it's been an amazing experience. We've covered so many interesting topics and got to talk so much about the news and accurate information. And everyone who's joining us from around the world, thank you so much. If you're watching live or later, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And we are looking forward to your comments. Tell us how your Sunday is going. Tell us what news you're looking for in particular, or what stories you're following. This show has been put together with the help of Neil, who's our executive producer, and an amazing team that works behind the scenes. We have Paula Kiger at Big Green Pen, Steve Taylor at Steve DeReeve, Julia Weeks is at Julia L. Weeks, and Carla Baranakis at Kabara, and Neil's at Neil Parekh. Please follow all of them and say hello and get in touch. I know they'd love to hear from you. This is all put together as part of our company, Digimentors. We do conferences, workshops, shows like this for other people. So if you know anybody anywhere in the world who is doing a virtual event or wants a talk show, podcast. Have them get in touch with us. My email is sri@sri.net, or you can see on the screen sri@digimentors.group or neil@digimentors.group. Let us know. We'd love to work with you. We're also able to do this because of our sponsors. And in this case, the sponsorship of our friends at Muckrack. Check out muckrack.com. If you're a PR person, you absolutely know them already. If you're a journalist, you know them. You can get a free verified profile on Muckrack. Every journalist in the world, they have the world's largest directory of verified journalists. So you'll want to check them out. And of course, we'd love to have you be a sponsor of our show as well. And again, you can see our email addresses right on the screen. Neil, this is a very special episode. I'm so honored to meet Jarrett and to talk to him about his work and about his life journey.
Absolutely. And of course, we're going to be talking about his book, Redeeming Justice. It's his memoir about his life, which is just an incredible story. And the reality, unfortunately, and he'll talk more about this, of course, is that it happens all too often where people are wrongfully convicted. In his case, he was exonerated. DNA evidence exists in many cases, but there are many people who are still in prison. And he'll tell us more about some of the cases that he's working on as well.
Before we bring him on, I just want to say you're wearing your Yankees jacket or shirt because today's the last day of the baseball season, and 4 teams are vying, including the Yankees, for one of the I guess the second wild card spot.
So there are 2 wild card spots actually in the American League, and it's the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Mariners all have a chance. And I don't bring out the Yankee jersey too often, Sri, but today's a special day. If things go a certain way, we actually could have a 4-way tie for those 2 spots. Now the Red Sox have to lose, the Yankees have to lose, and the Mariners, I didn't check if they won last night. I need to look into that. But if they won last night and win today, and if the Blue Jays win again, it could be chaos. There are all sorts of tiebreakers and games. But at the end of the day, I know the Yankees are going to make it into the playoffs, and I hope they have a good run. But as folks know, I'm a big Yankee fan.
Sure. And before we bring on Jarrett, I just want to very quickly look at the paper so that we can then have a nice conversation with him, and then we will bring Jarrett on to talk to us. So
absolutely,
this is the front page of the paper. I want to just pull that up here one second.
There we go.
There we go. And the front page lead story is hitting blockade over his agenda. Biden tax left. And the image here is Haitian migrants arriving in Panama last week after spending days crossing the Darien Gap, a treacherous swath of land that connects the country with Colombia. And so we're seeing, the trouble at the border and how things are shaking down there, and also how United found success with mandate. This is about the vaccine mandate. He drafted plan to keep Trump in the White House. That is John Eastman. Annette Wilson's watching from Indianapolis. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you, Annette. And thank you for wearing a mask, I see. Cities embrace visions of electric mass transit. And this is Somini Sengupta, friend of mine who I've known for a long time. Her byline, she is I believe her title is Chief Climate Correspondent for the New York Times. Jeannie is watching. Glad to hear this and looking forward to hearing Jarrett Adams. Thank you very much. Let's just quickly see what's on the rest of the sections. Sunday Review, the lead is, I don't want to hit my children. I don't want to hit anybody. Can a hotline help perpetrators of domestic violence? Well, I guess instead of stopping them, is it actually helping them? I want to know more. When TikTok becomes the mall, a social app once widely associated with dancing teenagers is now a place where people shop for things. And that's on the cover of the Sunday Styles. Sunday Business is the publisher's secret. An erotica pioneer was a savior of dozens of authors. Now they say they just want their books back. And how the pandemic made a tough test even tougher. This is about the CFA exam. Sunny Slaughter, our friend and former guest, is watching. Good morning from Maryland. looking forward to today's show. Everyone follow Sunny_Slaughter on Twitter. You'll get a daily dose of inspiration and so much more from the wonderful Sunny. Mind Reader is the cover of the book review. Bewilderment by Richard Powers is the book. And we'll look at this cover. When Dasani left home. What happens when trying to escape poverty means separating from your family at 13? This is the continuation of a very famous series that the New York Times ran several years ago by Andrea, and is now, I guess this young girl has grown up and will learn more. The real estate cover is Super Tall's Test City's Old Rules. I hate the super tall, some of the super talls in our New York City skyline. This is one of them. It's so skinny, by the way, folks, if you haven't seen this before. It has these blow-through floors. Do you see how you can see through some of these? Because they want the wind to blow through, otherwise the building could topple. And only 3 of New York's 25 highest residential buildings have completed the required building safety tasks. And the building blocks of civic discord, a Legoland theme park split a community and pitted business boosters against first-time environmental activists. I wonder where this is. This is in Goshen, New York. It's the home of Legoland, New York. And anyone knows anything about any of these stories, please jump in. And this is Arts and Leisure. Cover is not Bond, James Bond much longer. Daniel Craig is bidding farewell to the 007 character with the new movie No Time to Die. My wife is a big James Bond fan, and I know we will end up seeing this live or in person in theaters or in streaming. I also just want to mention that we do this show to encourage all kinds of newspapers, and we hope to do a Wall Street Journal read along soon. And I was struck by this very a really good cover of the Wall Street Journal's magazine that they have. And this is Tom Brady. I am a lifelong Jets fan, so I hate Tom Brady, but I so admire what he has done to go from 6th round draft pick to the greatest player in his sport in history. I think there's life lessons for so many young people if you read Tom Brady's story, even though, as I said, I can't stand him because he was killing the Jets all the time. And Jeannie says, listening from Wisconsin. Thank you very much. I think with that, we are almost ready to bring Jarrett on. Therese says, bonjour from Yonkers. Looking forward to the discussion on this critically important issue. And Therese introduced me to the incredibly important organization called Justice Aid. And everyone should check out the work that Justice Aid does. Very inspiring. And I think we are now ready to bring Jarrett Adams on with us. To all who are joining us, thank you for being here. Tag a friend. They can watch this show as soon as they can watch live, or as soon as it's over, it'll be on the same channels on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So please tag a friend. Let them know that this is going on, and they can join us in a little bit. Our guest is Jarrett Adams, top criminal defense civil rights attorney, author of Redeeming Justice: From Defendant to Defender, My Fight for Equity on Both Sides of a Broken System. He's at Jarrett Adams Law. And let's bring him on. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you? Thank you guys for having me this morning.
You're coming in from Chicago, so this is early morning for you, even earlier than out here. I always ask my first question, how are you? How have you been managing through the pandemic?
So I'm good. Thank you for asking. And the way I look at the pandemic is a bit different from everyone else because of my journey. I know what it's like to be isolated. And what I want more than anything is this. I want us to be able to come through this thing safely and get back to a sense of normalcy. I have, elderly folks in my family, and, it's been tough because, I'm very close with the elderly people in my family, and you just don't want to get, the vulnerable population sick or exposed. Some people are carriers and it doesn't affect them. So it's been tough, but it feels like there's light at the end of the tunnel. I am happy that we are discussing more about the research and about the myths and the facts. So I'm praying that we continue to do what we need to do, and we're able to come through this pandemic. But thank you for asking.
Thank you. I do want to just ask you about the the way in which the people in the criminal justice system have been affected by the pandemic. We've seen lots of issues around that.
Yeah. Well, just like oftentimes, the most vulnerable people suffer the most in situations like this. And prisoners are amongst that vulnerable population. I've litigated a number of inmates, who were trying to get out during the outbreak because numbers were high in certain places in prisons, especially for federal inmates in Louisiana. And so we saw a situation where we did attempt to release as many people as we could, but it should have been more released, and it should have sparked the conversation about how we're handling reentry, and is this corrections or is this warehousing? So I got many clients through this pandemic, but it also encouraged deep thought as well about how we're handling reintegration, and just when is it time to start considering when people should be released.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about your book. You have it right behind you, Redeeming Justice. Tell us how how the book came about, and how did you decide to write this now? You've had obviously an incredible life story, and did you have a little extra time during the pandemic to be able to put this together?
I did. I had extra time during the pandemic to put it together. Actually started on a book. It was 2.5 years to do this book because I didn't need to write a story to glorify and impress people about how far I've come and my accomplishments. I needed to write it so I can impress upon people the importance of duplicating more Jarrett Adams stories to tackle real reform in our system. And in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable. You have to open up at the most critical points and vulnerable stages in your life. And it was tough because I was a 17-year-old kid, when I was falsely accused of a sexual assault by a white accuser, and me and my two other friends were African American. It wasn't until that point that my innocence was lost, meaning that I growing up on the south side of Chicago, you're in a cocoon a bit, right? You're protected. Black mothers have to raise and be creative when they raise African-American men differently. And so my mother and my aunts kept tabs on me, made sure that I wasn't in a situation that I ultimately ended up. And so in going through that, and now as an adult, and I'm bringing others through it, I am noticing the same similarities, the same chords of a broken public defense system, a system in which if you can't afford to prove your innocence, then more than likely you take pleas that you shouldn't. You're found guilty. And so I wanted to find a way, because I had the belief that all I needed was a law degree and motivation, and I would tear all of this stuff down that oppressed folks who look like me and like Jarrett Adams when he was 17 years old. But after a realization of practicing for a few years, I knew that wasn't the case. And I knew I needed to inspire others to take up this cause. And how do I do that? I write from a perspective of the impact on the family, the impact on the community, how the criminal justice system itself impacts everyone.
I'm just thinking about your story. I'd like to people understand what went wrong. How did the criminal justice system get this wrong, as it does in so many cases? But what happened here, and how did those 10 years? I just, I have trouble even articulating the question, because it's painful to even think about, and to see you sitting here, a different man.
Yeah. It is something else when you think about the human resolve. Because if someone would have asked me, Jarrett, are you going to be strong enough to go through this? I most certainly would have raised both hands and said no. But I didn't realize how much of the fight that was instilled in me came from my grandparents. And I mentioned that in my book. I talk about my grandfather in my book. I learned a lot about who he was as a man. And my grandfather suffered what many people would have succumbed to, a fatal gunshot while serving in the war. And he was on his deathbed when they flew my grandmother to Germany to see him because they didn't think that he would survive. And not only did he survive, he left Germany and he had my mother, who eventually had me and my brother. So when I learned the history and learned the story about how my grandfather, a part of one of the few Black battalions, almost died on a beach and came back, worked all of the rest of his life, raised his kids, had my mother, dealt with what it was like to deal with slavery in the Deep South, where he and my grandmother derived from Jackson and Cleveland. And I think about that and I say to myself, who am I to complain? They most certainly suffered more than I did. I need to carry the torch that they ready for my hand.
This so special what you've what you've been able to do with your life. Please explain the circumstances of the exoneration and how did that come about?
So I and two friends, we go off to a party in Wisconsin. We come from a dangerous neighborhood in Chicago where we would often get in cars and go hang out in different places because there's just so much danger in these communities. You know, if it's not the streets, then it's the community and the police relations that you might succumb to. So we got in the car, told our parents we were going to spend the night over at each other's house, the classic alibi I'm sure many have used. And we go to a party. We go to a party and we are doing everything that everyone else at this party is doing. We're there, we have a consensual encounter, and it was walked in on by a roommate, and that started the false allegation wheels turning. The problem is this: when investigators investigated the false accusation, they knew from the beginning it was false because there was a statement from a young man that undermined the allegations completely. And the police withheld that statement from us, and we never saw it. I was ultimately convicted, sentenced to serve 20 years in prison initially. When I asked did I have anything to say, I wanted to apologize to my mom and to my aunts who had drove 5 hours each and every day for trial. And I said I was sorry for putting myself in a situation, but I couldn't apologize for an accusation of a rape that wasn't true. The judge gave me an additional 8 years in prison. And that was significant because now as an 18-year-old turning 19, I went to a super maximum / maximum prison in Wisconsin that was considered one of the most dangerous in Wisconsin. And there I served a significant portion of my time. But in some strange sort of way, what was meant to punish me set me on the path that I am on now. I remember being celled up with an older gentleman. He had a couple life sentences, had been in prison for over 20 years. And I remember him listening to a conversation that I was having on the phone with my parents when they were asking me questions about how could you get 28 years in prison for just an accusation, no evidence, there was no argument by the attorneys. And I'm high school, Chicago, public school education. I'm struggling to explain this to him. So my cellmate starts to go through the paperwork that I have. He encourages me to stop playing basketball and chess and go to the law library and learn how to articulate my innocence. So I started to do this over a number of years. And also what I started to do was this. I started to realize that my preconceived notions about what the prison system is in America was absolutely false. I became a tutor, and I would tutor men for their high school equivalency diplomas and their GEDs, and I would get to know them. And I would also do small litigation pro se on their behalf, and I would get to know men who come from areas like mine and other men who didn't. And I started to realize that the system isn't a system that is correcting anything. We are warehousing predominantly Black and brown men to the tune of 750,000 plus. So I continue to learn as much as I could. and write as many people as I could. And eventually I got a response from the Wisconsin Innocence Project. The Wisconsin Innocence Project and Keith Finley took my case, argued and litigated my case all the way to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, where the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously overturned my conviction and reversed my conviction, sent my case back to its beginning stages, where the state moved to dismiss all charges against me. Now, this dismissal, and when I was exonerated, was in February of 2007, once I was released. That was almost 10 years of my life. This happened in 1998. I didn't come home until I was 26, turning 27 years old. And there were things that were irreparable, where my conviction was reversed and sent back to its beginning stages. The life of Jarrett Adams was not. I remember sitting in my mother's living room, just looking at the photo album. And I could look at all of the pictures of me as a kid, junior high, high school. Right after graduation, there's not a single picture of me that continues. But I look at everyone else's pictures continue. Another picture of myself doesn't show up in my mom's photo album until I was released in February of 2007. So I couldn't let this journey end with a period where only God intended a comma to be. And what I mean by that is this: Jarrett Adams, wrongfully convicted, the end could not be my story. I needed to continue to drive to where I am today, because I had the hopes that I would use my journey and use my story to inspire others to really reform a system that is in desperate need of it.
Wow. Jarrett, your strength is so inspiring, and we have so many comments coming in. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just reading them because I want you to hear these as well. There's a wow from Marilyn. We are seeing Ron Thomas saying, wow, powerful. Sequena says, I love that. Carry the torch from our ancestors. You talked about your job was to carry the torch that they handed you. Yeah. And Sujana caught the same thing, carrying the torch they put in my hand. Wow. And here's another wow from Neil's mom, Sudha Parekh. Great interview, beautiful story, and it's really pathetic what happened due to the racial profiling. So many people are subjected to injustice. And I can tell you, we've had all kinds of guests on the show, including celebrities and others, and we've not had so many wows in a show. So that tells you how powerful the story is. Everybody, please book, reserve, get order the book that you see behind Jarrett, Redeeming Justice, available everywhere. If you can support an independent bookshop, of course you should. But otherwise, please get it. Please read it. You will learn a lot. Let me look at some of the other comments that came in. Here is Shaka Senghor, best-selling writer of Righting My Wrongs. Redeeming Justice is a beautifully written vessel of hope and redemption. Each page a daring act of justified defiance in the face of a brutish penal system. Incredible. And Scott Turow, the very famous writer, in a moving and beautifully crafted memoir without hyperbole or rants, Jarrett Adams compellingly demonstrates the institutionalized racism of the American criminal justice system. When you finish, you'll be grasped by two emotions: unbounded admiration for the author and a need to scream, yes, we must do something. And John Grisham is also in here. His comment: his determination to not only survive but succeed is nothing less than heroic. These are famous folks cheering you on, Jarrett.
Yeah, it means a lot. And I met Shaka recently, and I remember my wife was asking, did me and him like speak before, because she overheard us talking, and we connected so instantly. And what I realized walking away from that conversation was that we connected through each other's trauma of the prison system. Now, Shaka will always state this. Look, Shaka will say, I was there for something I did. You were there for something you didn't do. But I would go a little bit further in that and say this: the criminal justice system is a car crash, right? People leave car crashes with different ailments, but they still have ailments. And that's it. It goes to so much of what we need to do to really change. You think about Shaka's story, you think about where he is, you think about the book. He's an author, and he's been through so much in this criminal justice system. These are the antidotes that we need to fix and to repair. And I remember reading John Grissom's book, Scott Turoll's book, and I remember meeting them once I was released. Those books saved me mentally. My Aunt Sugar, Josephine, you guys will read about her in the book. She would send me the newspaper from Chicago, and I was locked up in Wisconsin. And so I would tell her, look, these papers cost so much. You know, you don't have to keep sending these. They come a day late. And she says, no, you don't understand. This is why I'm doing it. We have to acknowledge that they physically have confined your body, but you cannot ever allow them or anyone to incarcerate your mind. She fed words into me, breath, life into me. And I've always continued to read and to exercise that thought and embody what she said to me.
Wow. That's all I can say. And here we are going to be talking about the newspaper in just a few minutes. Yeah. We take it all so much for granted, and you were getting a newspaper a day or two late, and it was helpful to you to have it, a lifeline, whereas the rest of us take it for granted, as we take so much for granted when you're outside the prison system. Let's look at some more comments. Sunny Slaughter says, this happens more than people know, and stories like Jarrett must be exposed. Black and brown women manipulated within the justice system for which there is no justice, but a trail of tears and pain. Beautifully put, Sonny. Annette Wilson, my brother is in prison and suffering from a number of illnesses. He's also been accused of a child pornography charge. He cannot get a compassionate release or home confinement because of the plea deal he signed without knowing, because it was not read to him. His public defenders misled him and bullied him. A simple miscarriage of justice. I am so sorry, Annette. We're thinking of your brother today. Ron Thomas, watching from Dubai, our great friend, great supporter. He sat in my living room a few weeks before the start of the pandemic, Jarrett. And now he's watching from Dubai, as he always does. The fortitude to sustain that over the years, such an inspiration. And thank you, Ron, for always being there with us. I've seen so many other great comments. Let's look at a couple of more. Nicole Nerulia says, the comma, not a period, a metaphor this editor really loves. For those of you who may have just missed it, he said he didn't want his life to be Jarrett Adams, period, sent to prison, period. He wanted it to be a comma. God intended it to be a comma, but he had to put in the work so that it wasn't a period, the end of his story. And Marilyn says, no rehab is happening, but thank you for not giving up. I also saw our, here's more, Rosetta Hamilton, warehouse for black and brown males. That is what is happening in our prison system, especially for non-Americans. I don't think this is obvious. People understand this. America has 4%, less than 5% of the world's population. We have 21% of the world's prison population. How is it possible? Why is that happening? We're the only advanced country in the world that still has the death penalty. And all of this is problematic. And we know, as we've documented over the years, what's happening with the racial profiling and so much more, and the problems with just the police intervention and what happens there. And we also know that rich people have a different system of justice.
Absolutely.
Somebody pointed out that Louis DeJoy, the Postmaster General, did real damage to the Postal Service, knocking out all those Postal Service boxes because he didn't want the elections to be as fair as possible. But you or I, Jarrett, if we damage one box, we'll be in real trouble.
We are going to jail. We can't pass go or collect $200. That's exactly what's going to happen to us.
Marilyn is ordering now. Thank you, Marilyn. And everybody, please order this book. Order it for the young people in your life. Order it for yourself. Order it for a friend who doesn't understand where we are. And by the way, in the stories about the crime rates increasing and all of that, of course, we all want crime to be contained. We want crime to go down, but also know that the system that has been built around after all of these decades does have these problems, and people don't know them.
Yeah.
And thank you, Marilyn, for ordering Jarrett's book. And everybody, you can get this on obviously any platform, anywhere that you get your favorite books. All right, Jarrett, we do need to talk about the news, because that's what the show is. But
Let's
I
do
know
it.
I'm learning so much, and I did not know about your Aunt Sugar.
Yeah.
Josephine sending you these papers. Shout out to her. And
Yes.
just the fact, for those again who missed it, Jarrett's aunt would send him a newspaper from Chicago, because he was in Wisconsin,
Mhm.
to help him not have his mind contained or confined the way his body was. And in this show, we'll never look at the newspaper and what we do here in the same way again, now that we've met Jarrett Adams. Paulo is watching. This is awesome, and may it be replicated. And that's what Jarrett said. He didn't write this book to become famous. He wrote this so there'd be more Jarrett Adamses. And that's very important. And Lynn says Jarrett is in Madison on 10/23 for the Wisconsin Book Festival. So
Yes.
Everybody who has friends in Madison, tell them it's an in real life event, I gather.
It is. It is. God willing.
Yes. Sorry, I just missed one of the comments. I just want to go back there. Eileen is watching. I believe our justice system makes money off the prisons and the prison system, and also believe it's all colors that get injustice. And certainly we obviously see white folks as well. And I think it's more a function of or as much a function of economics as it is.
Oh, mom, tell mom don't make me cry on air, okay?
So this is Neil's mom, everybody. This is a real story, so powerful, and brought tears in my eyes, like so many friends from this platform. Incredible. Thank you. And Jeannie says, bless Jarrett. He's helping us with another innocent young man falsely accused. So that's a current case that's going on now. And Sunny says, book bought. I'm looking forward to it. Everybody, order this book. Buy it. And if you're in Madison, go get it autographed by Jarrett. And Jarrett, when you come to New York, you're autographing my copy.
Absolutely.
We're going to meet. And Rosetta said, just purchase the book. Can't wait to read. This is so cool that people are buying this book. And it's called Redeeming Justice: From Defendant to Defender, My Fight for Equity on Both Sides of a Broken System. And Jarrett Adams is at Jarrett Adams Law. Please follow him on Twitter. And Marilyn says, is the TV show for life written about your life?
So it is not, but I am supportive of that story getting the opportunity and getting a platform. There are unique parallels in that he was wrongfully convicted. He fought to get out, obtained a law degree, fighting on behalf of others. And you got to tip your cap to that. You just have to. And I was so inspired by seeing someone else's journey, which told me that I wasn't crazy, right? We can inspire others. We can duplicate others to join this fight. And it isn't written about me, but all writers and screenwriters, I'm available, okay? Would love to talk.
So who's playing you in your life story?
I'm not sure, but it's certain people I don't know, because my wife is like Michael B. Jordan, and she likes him so much. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Okay, but I haven't really put much thought into it. I just more so want whatever delivery it is. If it gets to that, I wanted to speak about the impact. Right, I wanted to chip away at the historical depiction of African-American men. I wanted to inspire youth to emulate being a lawyer like Jarrett Adams, right? Just like they emulated their favorite rapper. And so that's the type of impact that I'm looking to have. And shows can do that. Shows can literally spark conversations and lead change through depiction. So if it does come to that and my life does make it on a big screen or some screen TV show, I wanted to make sure that it has the most impact and not just, a strikingly handsome character that closely resembles me.
Yes, exactly. Hey, you should be
Yeah.
playing the older you. You're perfect to play
That
you.
worked.
Look at this. Ron Thomas has just ordered your book on Audible, and he's out in Dubai. He does these wonderful walkabouts where he shares photos of walking around Dubai.
Yeah.
And he's going to be listening. He already ordered it on Audible. And Therese says, downloading Redeeming Justice from Audible and looking forward to hearing you tell your story.
I read the Audible, so I think it's going to be a really cool listen. And I wanted to read the Audible myself because I wanted my voice to be passed down, to generations. And I thought about the times where I spent with my grandfather. I was the youngest grandkid, so they didn't really get a chance to know him as an adult. And boy, if we had the technology, I said to myself. So that's why reading the Audible book meant so much to me, because who knows, maybe me and my wife might end up on one of those paintings on top of the mantelpiece. And then they'll be able to press play on this book and hear directly from someone who hopefully changed the entire family tree by being just one branch.
Amazing. And here's Diane is recommending Denzel to play you.
Diane.
And we know and Denzel Jr. is also an actor, right? So
he is and a fabulous actor.
We've got the arc right there. Miller says, you are truly a positive force, and thank you for everything you're doing for our family. We love you. I guess this is another client family. And yeah. Thank you, everybody. Folks, that's Jarrett Adams. I'm Sri Srinivasan. This is our Sunday New York Times read-along, where we read this paper and we talk about the news with interesting guests. And I just want to give you a heads up about what's coming up in the next episodes. Every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we're live, but it's recorded on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We have some great guests coming up. So we want to show you our card here. Chris Smith, Broadway production and technical manager, who has worked on Evita, Chaplin, Elf, Kinky Boots, West Side Story, and Chicago. We'll be joined with Nancy Ringham Smith, Broadway actor, singer, director, teacher, producer, and credits include My Fair Lady opposite Rex Harrison, Will Rogers Follies opposite Mac Davis, and more. That's next Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Please join us. And every Sunday we have great guests, so you have to join us. We're going to also have, speaking of the law, Garrett, we're going to have Linda Greenhouse, the famed New York Times Supreme Court reporter, joining us in November. She's also got a book out. So, you're in great company. I'm in great company to be with you today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we talk about the paper a little bit?
Let's
and we'll
do
come
it.
back to your story too. Okay. So everyone, I just want you to know we're trying something new on this show today. We're using a new piece of technology. It's called a pencil cam. I'm just going to show it to you here. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. Yeah. So this is what it looks like. And it's a camera that allows me to show this physical paper right here on the screen. So we're going to read the paper like this. And you'll, instead of my holding my camera and my phone, the phone in my hand and trying to juggle the newspaper, now I can do it together with this simple device. It's meant for teachers to show things, but I'm excited about it. And they happen to have it on sale. So we bought it. It was $99. So it's kind of like a fancy overhead projector. Jarrett, you remember those?
I do. I remember those. Remember, what was the sheet that they used to have to put on?
Yes, that's right. A plastic sheet they had to use. But this is pretty cool, right? So you can imagine even for, and I know lawyers use overhead projectors sometimes in the courtroom to diagram things and all of that. Yeah. Yep. All right, let's talk about the news. So this is the New York Times edition. Lead story: fighting blockade over his agenda. Biden tax left, moderates frustrated. And Jarrett, as I read anything, jump in if you have a comment, question, anything you want to add. Well, we welcome your input as we look at this.
All right.
As much as we obviously hate everything happening with the injustice in the criminal justice system, look at what's happening before people even get into this country and what's happening there, black and brown folks, and the unfairness of it all. And these are Haitian immigrants and their story.
Yeah.
Shelter's boss earns $1 million for services despite troubled past. And this is about a nonprofit chief, multiple nonprofit chiefs profit off city's homeless problem. You know, when we start documenting, Jarrett, this country's problems, you know, here we already talked about 3 of them: the criminal justice system, the immigration system, the homeless services.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is tied together, isn't it?
It definitely is. And I don't want to miss, you know, speaking about what's going on in Haiti and thinking about the Haitian community, because it's important that we be as equal and fair and represented to everyone seeking asylum. There's a reason why we have it. You know, we have it because we're America. We are the leader, right, of the free world. And so I think that we shouldn't be selecting who it is based off of how they look or misinformed information. We should continue to do what made us great in this country, which is lead the free world. And so to gear towards this, I read this article this morning about the housing problem in New York. Spent a lot of time in New York when I worked at the Innocence Project, and also when I did a fellowship with the late Judge Deborah Batts. And it's one of these things where you look and you see so much going on with displaced individuals, homeless individuals. And so you ask yourself, how could something like this happen? How could someone in good faith, if everything is alleged to be true, how can someone doing this type of work even command such a salary when so much is needed in the streets and the boroughs of New York? It's getting ready to get cold. And that's what I thought about when I read that article this morning. It is getting ready to get cold. And in New York, when it gets cold, people lose their lives in the wintertime because of the issue of homelessness. We have plenty of resources to do plenty of things. And so we need to make sure when we are providing budgets and we are putting people in position of power to make the right decisions, we need to make sure that those right decisions are being made. So that article was timely.
Thank you. And of course, Chicago has its own issues, including with cold in Chicago. I've never understood how you all survive Chicago winters. It is, I like to say Chicago is my favorite, one of my favorite cities, 7 months of the year, maybe. And then maybe more like, you know, who knows, but it's cold.
I heard a comedian, the comedian said he had never been to Chicago. And he said that he was from LA and he made the mistake of buying a winter coat from LA to Chicago. And he said it just simply did not work. And I mean, that's Chicago. Chicago is most certainly colder than New York. And I think that's because we sit in a bit of a bowl in the city of Chicago. But hands down, I still think we have the best food. Might be a bit biased, but that's my opinion.
All right, we'll have to have a taste off when you come back to New York, and I love any excuse to come to Chicago. Laura Silverman, who is very thoughtful on so many things, says all the problems are connected and we are all connected.
Yes.
The sooner we see that big universal picture, the better equipped we will be to work together to make meaningful change. She's a former guest on this show, and she, by the way, is running a really fun project every year at this time. And Laura, please tell us about it in your comments and we'll show it to people. It's a wonderful way to think about everything that's happening in the world, but through a fun lens. So she'll write about it in a little bit. Let's keep going. Cities embrace visions of electric mass transit. And this is so many story. Look at in Bogota, Colombia, offers commuters a cleaner, quieter, and quicker trip with Wi-Fi. That's interesting. How United found success with with the mandate, you know, the vaccine mandate. Let me ask you a question. Is there, what is your prescription for helping to get Black folks, some of them who rightly, because of history of the medical establishment doing such damage to Black lives and Black bodies, are hesitant? What do you say to them? And what do we do about this problem with the NBA players? While, by the way, big shout out to the WNBA. Once again, Black women saving America. They're all vaccinated. And we have these superstars, rich people in
Yes.
the NBA who are falling down on their obligations.
Here's what I'll say. Well, first, I was thinking about when going to school, how you couldn't get into school without having a card and you had to take vaccines and stuff like that. So I was just thinking about that and where we are now. But here's what I'd say. I think that we need to educate as much as possible. I think that we sometimes in this country, want to force feed people to take things. I'm vaccinated. My wife is vaccinated. We're vaccinated because we have elderly folks in our family, and we would rather sacrifice our health as opposed to get them sick and we not have the time to enjoy with them any further. So we thought about this. We did the research. And I think that's what everyone else should do as well. I don't think that we should be alienating people for their decision. I think that we need to start to educate as much as possible to prove off the rhetoric that we're hearing. We also need this. We do need leaders who have followings to educate as well. This is about everyone. This isn't about one single issue or anything like that. This is about everyone's health and safety. Our job and how I think of the world is this. How do I get up and make sure that I preserve this world in best shape to the descendants that I want to give it to? And I think if you think about that, this vaccination, battling this pandemic, it takes selflessness. So I think that we should start thinking of ourselves, but think about others as well when we're talking about this issue with vaccine. But I am vaccinated. I respect people's right to choose and decide, but I want you to have an informed decision, because it's not just you. The entire community, the entire United States is counting on you making that right decision.
How do you explain the difference between the WNBA players and the NBA players?
Because Black women have always been superheroes. That's how I explain it. And I'm just being honest with you. I don't say that because I'm married to one or one gave birth. Through my experience, I realized, just who is the strongest of all creatures on this earth. And I believe it is Black women from what they endure, and the men that they give birth to, the men that they love. You could go back to the days of reading and slavery, and you could see how Black women, oftentimes came to the rescue in the support of Black men. And so when I think about the WNBA, I think about Maya Moore. I think about, the Lisa Leslies. I think about all of the folks in the WNBA. And I think about how they make unified, informed decisions, and they do it from a perspective of, it's not just about me. What about everyone else around me? And I think that that's what we need to start to move towards. Instead of the political back and forth, we need to start putting as much education out there about what's real, what's not, and what's just pure propaganda.
Yeah, and as much as we want to pile on to the NBA players who are misleading the public with their stance, we want to acknowledge LeBron said he's vaccinated, and there are also white NFL quarterbacks who are causing major problems, people like Kirk Cousins, by not being vaccinated and then not shutting up about it. Like, that'd be one thing. Why don't you just be quiet? And by the way, you've gotten a gift. This is Sunny saying yes to what you said about Black women, and that's pretty cool to me. All right, let's keep going. We've got about 40 minutes and we've got the whole paper. We haven't even made it past the first page, Jarrett. Your stories are too interesting. Sunny says the power, presence of positioning of Black women should never be underestimated. Totally agree. And look at Sunny just dropping these thoughts right there. Ron Thomas, brother, speaking the truth. I think of my mom and grandma, all the stories, but my dad was so awesome. So, right, a shout out to the awesome Black men as well. But we're cheering the Black women here today. And then finally, he drafted plan to keep Trump in White House. And this is the story of John Eastman, who is, when history is written, all of these terrible people, I hope they'll be called into account. But that's the reason we have this situation. Okay, let's open page 2, Jarrett. We've got a long way to go.
All right.
Okay, let's see. I'm just looking through the paper here. Just jump in if something catches your eye. Starbucks has a full-page ad. Our next 50 years inspired by our first. I didn't realize that Starbucks is 50 years old. It seems to have like really taken off in the 90s. Of course, you may not have been, unfortunately with your story.
Yeah.
There must have been so many things, Jarrett, that you missed. The rise of the cell phone would have been something that you read about but didn't experience till you came out of prison, right?
That is definitely true. So in 1998, there was no Google out yet. Google was not out yet. And if you had a cell phone, we were doing, it was pagers in the 90s, right? And if you had a cell phone, it was literally as long as your arm, and the antenna was as long as your leg that you needed to screw onto it, right?
Yep.
So as much as the country has advanced, that supports the argument in the book Redeeming Justice. How do we allow the advancements in technology and infrastructure and in science, but we don't allow the advancements in the research and the numbers that tell us we're doing criminal justice wrong? And it's an amazing feat how much we've come so far with the phone, the rotary phone, and now we have these cell phones, and now we have schedules. People literally live off of their phones now. And if we could trust that advancement, we need to trust the rest of the numbers that takes us into the better place as well in these states.
Yeah, I like to travel without my laptop sometimes, and I can do everything off my phone. Here's a story from Paris, Europe's new cycling capital or a pedestrian's nightmare. They try to do an experiment, really making it easy for people to use bicycles in Paris. Let's keep going. 57 migrants feared dead in bid to cross into Europe. This is a worldwide story. And then here's that story from Seeking Path to US. This is about Haitians. An ad for Lego plays well with others. Sometimes you're surprised what ads you see in the paper.
Right.
Northern England, battered towns test a plan to level up. This is lots of projects are going on in these cities. Killings among Arabs soar in Israel, bearing its neglect of crime. Pleas for police action as a task force meets. This is an ad for City of Hope. I guess it's a cancer research hospital.
Yeah.
And then Canadian narrator of ISIS videos is flown to US for trial. In reversal, Duterte says he'll retire next year. He's done this before, so I don't trust him. He, Orban, these are all the dictators of the world, as you know. Trump loved him. In a Pakistan studio race to keep history from fading away. That should be an interesting story. And a cruise. Have you ever been on a cruise?
I haven't. Listen. The movie Titanic has scared me off of cruises. Now I know I need to get over this fear, but I just don't think I could sleep on a boat. I just don't.
Well, if Titanic, wait till you hear about the pandemic and what it's doing to cruising. Choosing who will run an ungovernable city. Which one is this? This is about Rome. I didn't know which. I thought it was a city in America they were talking about, but crowded field for Rome's mayoral election. Let's see here. Now, speaking of Black women, you have a powerful Black woman as mayor of Chicago. Have you had a chance to meet Mayor Lightfoot?
So I haven't got a chance to meet Mayor Lightfoot personally, but being in the city of Chicago, you just see all of the work she's trying to put in to change a lot of what's going on in the city and give opportunity. We just broke ground on Obama's library, and I pray because where it's situated on the South Side, I pray that the ripple effects is more resources, more opportunities, more educational opportunities for residents on the South Side and the West Side, where the crime takes place the most at. And so I'm inspired by some of the work, some of the things. And listen, no one's perfect, so we can't expect it's for everyone to make the best decision, but the effort should never be questioned. And I think that Lori is doing the best that she can with what she has, and it's more than just on her in a city as big as Chicago. It's on all of our leaders in Chicago to make Chicago a better place.
Good. I know it's hard to summarize, but is there a way to stop the shootings?
There is. We have to become creative. And if we think that we're going to continue to lock up every black male in the city of Chicago and gun violence will stop, that's not going to happen. We need to create some creative litigation. And what I mean by that is this: there's not one gun manufacturer in the state of Illinois. There's not one ammunition manufacturer in the state of Illinois. Yet, some of the most expensive guns and automatic weaponry enters the city of Chicago in impoverished areas. So what that means is this: maybe we need to look at an approach that the litigators took with the pharmaceutical industry, where it started to get affluent communities affected. And maybe we need to start to look and explore litigation on where those guns are coming from and holding people accountable. I'm not a tech guy, but if we could open phones with thumbprints, then most certainly we could figure out a way to create safety mechanisms on weapons that continue to kill kids on the streets of Chicago and inner cities. And there's no way we can affect change in a positive way, and we can duplicate more Jarrett Adams if we keep losing our kids before they ever have an opportunity to have their candle lit.
Thank you. Miller says, you're definitely telling the truth. Pray for the city. How they say, don't speak ill of the recently dead.
Yeah.
Well, Pat Robertson is not dead, but he has stepped down, and the rule doesn't apply to people who've retired. So I can tell you this man is as responsible for the terrible situations in this country as almost anybody who's never elected to office. And what he said about black folks, what he said about gay folks, what he said about Hindus. Yeah. As a Hindu, I can tell you, this man has done real damage, and he's stepping down. I read this when I first saw the headline. I read it as he stepped down after 700 years as host of the 55 Club. And the other way around. Let's keep going. We've got a lot to talk about. We like looking at the obits because it's kind of interesting to see. So we'll just quickly glance at them. Clive Sinclair, who pioneered affordable personal computers, dead at 81. He designed the world's first pocket calculator, digital watch, and mini TV. He should be a lot more famous. Bob Moore, 88, an architect of the Nashville sound. He played bass on Elvis Presley's Return to Sender. Wow. And Patsy Cline's Crazy. Marilyn Golden, 67, champion of the disabled. And Alan Gardner, 91, dies, taught chimpanzees to sign. And Edward Keating, 65, Times photographer at Ground Zero, who helped win a Pulitzer. Really interesting to see this range of stories and people's lives here. We encourage anybody who is interested in using technology to honor those who have passed to check out the Miss You Graham app. Miss You Graham is an app that's really a great way to tell stories of your loved ones. Are you a sports fan? Tell me.
Am I? Yeah. Am I? So I'm teaching a weekend seminar here downtown Loyola Law School, my alma mater, and we're taking a lunch break where we might get a little extra time because I'm trying to see how Justin Fields is doing today as he gets his second start. I'm
cheering for him too. I'm cheering for him.
Yeah. Tom Brady.
No fan of Tom Brady here. Just so you
know. As I said, I'm not a fan of Tom Brady, but what he's achieved, you've got to respect the achievement and the effort and the work. Again, you can't question his work ethic, but he's really he is the GOAT in that sport.
I'm like you. Listen,
go ahead.
You don't like him because you never win against him, right?
Yeah,
but coming from Chicago, I can understand how people felt during Jordan's reign, right? I understand. So we had the pleasure of that, and it's like, I mean, this guy literally. If you go back and you watch the footage of their analysis of who he was and how he was going to be as a quarterback, it should inspire anyone to never ever let someone's perception of them become their reality. That's really what his story says.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I totally agree. Eileen's still bitter about the deflate gate, as you can see there.
Yeah.
Eileen is still upset. But I'd also say, Jarrett, it's also about luck, right? If Drew Bledsoe hadn't gotten injured, the franchise quarterback, there's no way Tom Brady would have gotten as early a start as he did. And so life is about luck. Life is about circumstances. Your journey says that more than anything else.
Yeah,
And
it's also about fortune and preparation, because you look, when you're a backup quarterback, you have to be ready at any given moment. And Tom took that opportunity, and when he got the ball, deflate gate or not, he was not giving it back.
Yep. So that's a lesson for our children, isn't it? That be prepared, put in the work, be ready. If you get the chance, just really execute well, right?
That's it. I mean, I told myself on many, I spent a lot of time in segregation, and I mentioned this in the book. And when asked, how was I able to get through this, I lived each and every day as if I was preparing to get released the next. And that's exactly the type of preparation it takes to be a Tom Brady, to create the duplication, and inspire our young folks to overcome the many obstacles, especially for black and brown kids in inner cities.
Wow. Dr. Lippy Roy, former guest on the show multiple times, says, I don't follow football. Go Leafs, go. She's talking about the hockey team. After living in Boston for 5 years, I can truly appreciate the genius of Brady as an elite athlete. Top of his game in the brutal sport of football in his 40s. Come on, luck, yes, but he had to perform at the highest level. And
Absolutely.
Dr. Roy had, by the way, I want to say we've had so many comments, a volume of comments. Jarrett, is so high that we may not even be able to find Dr. Lippy's first comment, which was so early in the show, but she's worked in Rikers and she knows the criminal justice system and the health care that is needed and is missing in there. So we salute Dr. Lippy Roy for being a doctor who is serving people in those circumstances. It's easy to take the money and run and work in more comfortable areas, but Lippy has never been like that. And we truly appreciate her work. She's an addiction specialist and does great work. And she says, storytelling and advocacy are the key. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I've written several Forbes stories about incarceration, addiction, women behind bars for HuffPost, and COVID in jail. And just great to have you with us, Dr. Roy. Thank you for all you do.
Dr. Roy.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Metropolitan building blocks of civic discord. People are fighting over Legoland, Jarrett. You lawyers can keep busy over anything. To be fair, you work on other kinds of issues, but there's a lawyer everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how when someone can afford the billable hours, you can come up with an argument, right? And that's a prime example.
All right. Amanda McDonald says, great work on your book. Say hi to Joy. Tell us about Joy.
Also, Joy is my wife. That's my lovely wife. And I wouldn't be able to do a lot of what I'm doing right now without her. The chapters were difficult to get through. And so it was being able to lean on her, the encouragement that is, the more I opened up, the more effect it would have. And so I met my wife when I was getting ready to enter into law school. And so, she pretty much made me chase her for about 1.5 years because she wanted me to concentrate on this first year of law school. We got to know each other. We got to know each other's parents. So I want to send a shout out to my mom, my mother-in-law, Georgette, and our intertwined family that we now have. My wife is an attorney. So I very rarely win any debates in my house. Okay. And she's just a remarkable human being. I mean, I think that there are a lot of untold stories of folks who've overcome so much. She comes from the city of Detroit, a rough area like myself. She's experienced the criminal justice system in that she supported her brother while he went through some things. And I think that is, what makes folks informed is when you have different experiences. And so she comes from the city. She as a child has this experience with her brother. She enters into law school because she wants to dedicate her service in the legal field to youth. She ends up going into big law to divert the resources, the time, and the attention to the issues in these neighborhoods. And now she's just like a total rock star. She's an attorney for Netflix, and just an amazing person. Really, really. I know I'm bragging because I'm biased, but I'm also fortunate and thankful to have her.
Well, she sounds awesome, and we're showing her her work with this very important group that's she's part of Life After Justice, battling injustice, reclaiming lives.
Yes.
And we honored, Joy, if you're listening, to have you as a guest in the future. No pressure, no rush, but down the road. And then you help Jarrett with his setup, and and Jarrett helps you with your setup when you're a guest on our show.
That will work. Okay, we'll have to work on her book. Tell her, speak loud, speak it into existence.
Yeah, I don't want to speak it too loud, because my wife, who's a published author, just finished she's at a nonfiction book in English and in Chinese, and now has finished a novel. She's been after me to write a book, so I don't want to talk it too loud, because if she hears there's a open season on spouses being encouraged to write books, I'd get in trouble. So I'm gonna moderate my
write that book.
Look at this story. City streets are deadlier than they've been in years. In fact, there were more pedestrian accidents during the pandemic in New York than in a typical year, partly because there were all kinds of like people drag racing and things like that weren't happening before. And so that's something that's going on. Let's see what else is in the news. Real estate, super talls test city's old rules. Do you have super talls in Chicago? I know you have the tallest building, except we cheated. We put the spire. We counted the height of the spire, and so we're now taller. But you don't have these skinny super talls, right? You have like skyscrapers, but you don't have like this one. I hate this one.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have those. We have like you're right. We have big, tall. It used to be called the Sears Tower, and it's been renamed. But those are the type of buildings that we have in New York. I mean, in Chicago. But I've been in New York. I spent a lot of time in New York, and it's remarkable how they can go straight up and remain sturdy. It's scary looking from the bottom up to the top, isn't it?
Yeah. And this particular building has had to have these blow-through floors with nothing in them so that the building doesn't topple over. So first of all, imagine how much land, or how much space they're wasting. Yeah. And there has to be clear. Otherwise, if the wind couldn't go through, there'd be a crisis. All right. Another important story. This is my friend and former student Andrea Elliott's story in the New York Times Magazine, when Dasani left home. And this is about many aspects of the broken systems of New York City. Yeah. And we're just going to, so this was Dasani in 2013. And then you saw her in the cover. Now she's 20. So this is her now. And when she was the subject of a deep series by Andrea Elliott, she was just 13 years old.
It's amazing growth.
All right, let's go. Oh, there she is, and there's a picture of Andrea with with Dasani here.
The journey is incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad you know the story. That's great. Let's keep going here. Let's see. This is about Eddie Gallagher, who, talking about criminal justice, there's a whole separate justice system in the military, and it doesn't always go as it should. We know that. Let's see. New York mobilizes once again to bring crowds back of visitors. What TV shows are you watching now?
So I'm not really much time for TV, but
Okay.
what I do check in on is I'm watching Animal Kingdom. I'm not sure if many people are aware what that is, but it's like interesting. And I read the book, which is what got me locked into watching the TV show Animal Kingdom.
It's not about animals. We should make it clear, right?
It's definitely not about animals, right? So you'll enjoy the book, but the series is great. And then I look at a lot of stuff that 50 Cent is doing, Power, stuff like that. I watch a lot of that, but mainly what I do is religiously. Sports Center is on, and I watch, the nightly news, read the paper, stuff like that. But every now and then I get a chance to binge watch Netflix and stuff like that. But a lot of the shows that I watch are like documentaries, history stuff. I'm looking at a lot of Ken Burns, speaking about like the Civil War, because I was always interested in knowing more about the different people and characters along the Civil War.
Sure. I can't wait to watch the Ken Burns documentary on Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
And for 20 years, I've been DVRing every single day. Speaking of Chicago, the Mike Wilbon show and Tony Kornheiser on PTI.
Yeah.
He's a great son of Chicago, though he lives in different places now. Mike Wilbon does, but
I've crossed paths with Michael. So Michael, if you're watching this, I've crossed paths with you in Clayton's in Chicago. And Clayton's is like, it's a cigar bar. It's a social spot. And I saw Mike Wilbon there with Charles Barkley, and it was around the All-Star like weekend. So everybody was in town, and I didn't see him at first, but I heard his voice, and that's what got my attention because I listened to Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon so much, and it was like PTI just broke out in Clayton. So it was a heck of an experience that I had that night.
Yeah, I listen to it on the podcast format now, and it works really well. Yeah. Marilyn says, I'm a clinical social worker. She'll be a doctor in December 2021 in a federal prison, and I see the oppression. I'm doing my part to advocate, and your story inspires me. Thank you again, Marilyn. Thank you for what you're doing. My God.
And Marilyn, I want to say that Marilyn, what you're doing is what we need to replicate in terms of this. We need the criminal justice system and the gap between that and mental health care to shorten very quickly. I'm not here without having the opportunity to have mental health care, which is the reason why we created Life After Justice, the nonprofit, because we can't just simply release people and tell them, figure it out. We have to provide the stability, the opportunity, the infrastructure to help people reintegrate back into society. And that's what we're doing with Life After Justice, when we actually need more healthcare providers and professionals. Right now, the pandemic has encouraged us to rely more on technology. And so if we're able to do this now, we need to start offering telehealth services to men and women impacted who can gather so much and gain so much from being on with healthcare providers. So thank you so much for the comment, and thank you for watching today.
Thank you. Here's Kwame Anthony Apaya's column, ethics column. What should I do with my portrait of a slave-holding ancestor?
Man, that's deep.
Yeah. We don't have the time to read it now, but I encourage everybody to read it. He's a great columnist and just great. I love reading his stuff. All right, we're just going to flip through this a little bit. Do you still believe in voicemail messages, or do you text? What do you do?
I believe in getting on the phone. I really do, because I love text, instant, boom, it's there. But sometimes text can lose the tone of the voice. So I'm still an old-fashioned call me type of person.
All right.
My mom is just now learning how to text. And some of the emojis, I'm just not sure she understands what they mean.
Ma'am, Mom, that is not an eggplant.
You're right.
That is not a peach, Mom.
Right.
Tejal Rao's wonderful food writing. I love everything she writes. And this is about a breakfast that dreams of being dinner, chickpea pancakes. This Thing of Ours, What the Sopranos Knew About America That We Didn't Yet, by Will Staley. My son, 18-year-old son, just binged watched the entire series.
I did too.
And it was fascinating to watch him watch it and talk about it. And tonight we have a plan to watch The Many Saints of Newark at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to watch it together using, he's in California at college. So we're going to watch it together. There's now this great technology that allows you to watch the same thing together and talk to each other.
It
So
does.
Sopranos fans out there, shout out.
And listen, not to mention shout out to the Soprano fans. Let me tell you, we just got done talking about mental health. So if the Sopranos, right, a mob story can tackle the issue for the need of mental health care providers, what are we doing? What are we missing?
Yeah, well put. Thank you. Let's keep going. This is Dasani. When Dasani left home, what happens when trying to escape poverty means separating from your family at 13? And this is such a special story. Everybody should read the original story and then read this. And Cherie is watching Good Morning from Burrell Worldwide in Beverly Hills. So it's about 6:50 in the morning.
It's early, Cherie.
Thank you for getting up and watching with us. Big shout out to our entire California crew. Lots of different people get up in the morning. The portrait of a slaveholding ancestor is just the tip of the iceberg on that question. So we've got to read that. And just the way, the use of photography here is very, very striking in what this has done. And then what is this? She was a controversial literary star before she disappeared more than 20 years ago. Now she's back with a new novel. What can she tell us about our Black literature today? And this is about Gail Jones. I'm sorry to say I don't know the work. I look forward to reading about Gail Jones.
Yeah,
Gayl, in case anybody missed that. Are you a puzzler?
I am. I am. I'm a crossword puzzler. I actually love Scrabble.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't like playing with people who create their own words, but I do love Scrabble. Okay.
My family, we play a lot of Scrabble too. We love that. It's a great game. Okay, we're just almost out of time, so just want to show people the book review cover, the publisher's secret about some problem in the publishing industry, how the pandemic made the CFA exam test even tougher, and TikTok, when TikTok becomes the mall, and lots going on there. The book review cover is I don't want to hit my children. I don't want to hit anybody. Can a hotline help perpetrators of domestic violence? So can it help reduce domestic violence?
The only way we know is if we do it. So why not do it? We could save lives.
Sure. And then this is the James Bond, not Bond, James Bond much longer. This is Daniel Craig ending his run with this movie. As you know, there's been some discussions about whether there should be a female James Bond, whether James Bond could be black at Idris Elba, who, by the way, could also play you. And
no, that's another one that my wife loves. No, sorry, Idris. I apologize, man.
So you're determined to find an ugly person to play you, but that's not fair to you. So you're caught in a conundrum there, my friend.
Yeah, keep her offset.
By the way, Daniel Craig had something interesting to say. He said he supports women, obviously, in movie, having great roles. He says, why don't we write new roles instead of making a female James Bond or changing it? Let's get new stories and new ideas.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Writing new characters in, and this might not be his. All the greats are like, I'm done playing basketball. I'm Jay-Z. I'm done albums, and they keep delivering. So, but I agree with that statement. We need to create more character. Why is there this belief that we can't get behind a new international spy who's amazing and jumps off planes and catches trains by one hand? We could do that, right? We have imaginations.
Yes, we could. Folks, what a morning it's been for me already, Jarrett. I am inspired. I'm excited. I am disheartened by what has happened in your past, but inspired by where you're going with it, what you've already done. the help you've given so many people. Let's look at some more comments, and then we're going to start wrapping up here.
Okay.
And here's Marilyn. Sadly, Congress cut funding in mental health during the Trump administration. Please get the word out to secure funding so we can provide mental health care for our formerly incarcerated. Call your representatives and use. I guess, is there an app? Is that what the 5 calls app?
So we have to. What I want people to do is go on findlifeafterjustice.org. We are incubating a system where we need support. And we need everyone to come together so we can develop a plan. And in order to do that, we need the resources, we need the bodies. So we need folks to get in contact with us so we could take our idea off the ground to start affecting people as fast as possible. Lifeafterjustice.org.
I see that donate button. So everybody who bought a book, you've done your part, but maybe you want to do a little donation. If you haven't bought a book, every dollar counts. So I know no amount is too small, but no amount is too big either. And to quote one of my favorite movies from the old days, Coming to America, we like the kind that jingle, the donations that jingle, but we really like the donations that fold. If you remember that line from when they go to that church.
Yeah.
Crazy pastor. Do you remember him?
I do, with the curl, right? Who can forget that? Okay.
Did you watch Coming to America too?
I did. I watched it. I thought it was. Listen, when you watch shows like that, reboots, it takes me back to being a child, to when my Aunt Sugar would carry the world. I'm surprised we ever got in the movie theater with this purse the way she used to bring. This purse was so big, we would have foot-long sandwiches, chips, pop, you name it. And watching reboots like that take me back to those days. I really enjoyed that. Great writing.
Yeah. And Marilyn says that the 5 Calls is an app that helps you call your Congress folks. So let's all get on that. And again, by the way, it's a function of my privilege that I don't even know this exists, right? Like in some communities, among the folks who have to deal with this with their families, I bet everybody knows the 5 Calls app. So that tells you how lucky some of us are. And that's just my luck. And it's nothing, I didn't earn this privilege.
Right. But it also tells you this as well. Look at how you're opening up this platform. I mean, I can't sit up here and tell you that everyone will be receptive to Jarrett Adams' story, but you are. And through conversation, we're teaching people, we're affecting people. And it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Ron Thomas says every show brings up insight. My Sunday is a work day. He's in Dubai. I forgot where Sunday is working day, but my schedule is based on the New York Times read along. How awesome is that? Ron Thomas,
I need to meet you when I come
sitting
to Dubai.
Here in this on this dining table with me just before the pandemic, and now he's in Dubai. Jonathan Borstein says, by the way, important show, important topic, and important book. Thank you. And Jonathan's a wonderful friend. Apollo says mental health is most important before incarceration. To ignore that is to keep the status quo, which has been profoundly damaging. We're not talking about the use of psychology to target people for incarceration, the use of trauma and triggers to cause self-sabotage, to build ready-made cases.
Well said.
Annette says, where can people who can't afford a lawyer get pro bono services? Important question.
So, Annette, here's what I want people to think about. There are only so many organizations that offer pro bono resources because the resources aren't there. So what we need more of is we need more people doing the work. And in order to get more people doing the work, we need more support. So what I've done at Life After Justice is this. I understand that we can't get to everyone because we don't have enough funding right now. We're still working on that. I've created videos. There's a video on my YouTube, and it's called How to Obtain a Pro Bono Lawyer. It takes you through the steps of getting your story enticing enough to where it's on this person's radar to get them to provide those services. Becoming as prepared as possible is important. Having all of the documents, scanning them on a zip drive, putting together a well thought out email. Those are some of the tools that you can do while you wait for help or are continuing to seek other help. It's what I did when I was out reaching for the Innocence Project. I was waiting on them to come, praying that they came, but I never stopped doing the work myself.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, on your website at lifeafterjustice.org, you show that people can donate, that companies can donate, but also you have volunteer information. So people can volunteer. This is the website. This is the video you were talking about, pro bono attorneys. So everybody, please check that out. And we really want to support Jarrett and his work in every possible way. I think we're almost out of time, so we're going to do a couple of things here, Jarrett. I'm going to ask you to stand by, and when you come back, I'd like you to make a real sales pitch for the book. I know that's not why you do this, but we would like that. So we're going to give you a chance to collect your thoughts, and we're going to do some housekeeping, and then we're going to come back. Therese says, thank you for sharing your story. You motivate us all in the fight for justice. And please, everybody, check out Justice Aid, another wonderful and important organization. By the way, Jarrett, I think we need more collaboration among the nonprofits that are doing work, because
you are absolutely right.
More people need to hear about more organizations, and I think there's still a gap there. And anything that I can do to bring people together, I love doing. All right, so we're going to put Jarrett on standby for a minute. I want to tell you about a couple of shows and things that are coming up. This week, in my other show, we do a weekly show around COVID, and we're going to do Vietnam under COVID with live reporting and live interview with Lian Huang, a reporter based in Ho Chi Minh City. And we also have the co-organizer of New York City's Dumb Buck fundraiser, which is working with Vietnamese food makers, creatives, and entrepreneurs across the nation. You order from a Vietnamese restaurant for dinner tonight, and that money helps the terrible situation in Vietnam. It turns out that Vietnam had a great first season of the pandemic, and in the second season, things have gone really bad. So check out dum-boc.com. This is Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to have you all join us. And we also want to say to our wonderful team, a big thank you to everybody. Neil Parekh, you seen what we're able to do. He's at Neil Parekh, Paula Kiger at Big Green Pen, Steve Taylor at Steve DeReeve, Julia Weeks at Julia L. Weeks, and Carla Baranakis at Kabara. And you see how we annotate the show. This is not your Zoom call, everyday Zoom call. This is a special way in which we are able to tell these stories. So I'm going to have Neil come in, and we have a couple of housekeeping things, and then a final word from Jarrett Adams. So Neil, welcome back. And I am so, as I said, jazzed about a very tough topic we had to deal with, but he did that so beautifully, and he still got a couple more minutes with us before we're done.
I wanted to just give an example. For example, I showed the video on screen. While I did that, Paula put the link to the pro bono video in the comments in Facebook. She also shared the link to Justice Aid. You mentioned that our friend Therese Steiner. I'm also proud to be on the board for Justice Aid as well. But she shared the link to the Life After Justice, and then throughout the show, she was putting in links to articles. So that's what we do in terms of producing the show. I do want to give a shout out. You mentioned our team. I also want to give a shout out to Carla Baranakis, who puts out the Local Connection newsletter every week. From the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University. Each week it offers story ideas and pro tips for journalists, and best of all, it's free. You can subscribe at bit.ly/local news tips, bit.ly/local news tips. And when we bring Jarrett back on, we're going to ask him about a pro tip since he just finished his memoir. Again, we want to ask him about his memoir, but also ask him about the writing process and what that was, what his advice might be. And again, you mentioned it earlier, Sri, but just want to remind folks that next week we'll be joined by Chris Smith and Nancy Ringham Smith. We'll be talking about the reopening of Broadway after being closed because of the pandemic, with two great guests with deep ties to the theater community and long careers on stage and behind the scenes. And an interesting fact that, if I'm not mistaken, Nancy is, I believe, is the sister of Hedrick Smith, our guest when we did the Pentagon. Or is it Chris is the brother? I can't remember now, thinking about the last names. But related to Hedrick Smith, who was our guest when we did the 50th anniversary of the Pentagon Papers back in June. So certainly incredible. And again, I want to bring Jarrett back in and tell him how much we appreciated him joining us today. for this show. It was, my mom, made the comments earlier. If people saw how moving this was and how meaningful it was to hear his story, and that's where we certainly got a lot of comments. Sequina said that Jarrett has been amazing. Love the work that you're doing. It's so important. Jennifer, excellent interview. And Manuel gave us some claps as well.
From Spain, by the way.
From Spain.
Spain is in the house. Just want to say, everybody watching, you love this interview. Please hit share right now. Whatever platform you're on, retweet it. Tag a friend. This will start as soon as we're off the air. It'll replay. People can watch it, share it. Please tag somebody who will be inspired by this. And everyone, please do what you can to support the book, of course, but you can also support the organization. And by the way, Neil, just to show everyone how easy it is to make a donation while you were speaking, I made a modest donation to lifeafterjustice.org. That's how quickly I could do it while juggling all of this.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted everybody to know that.
And before we bring Jarrett on in just a second, I want to get back to a thread we were talking in terms about recasting the James Bond character. Dr. Roy says agrees we need stories, more movies with strong heroic women, better than Bond. She recommends Atomic Blonde, which Charlize Theron. She totally kicks ass, as she says. And I want to say there was another, Laura Silverman agreed that we don't need women to inhabit men's roles. We need strong, heroic women to receive the same level of attention, resources, money, everything. And that's not just in movies. I'm thinking about soccer in particular with the women's national women's team and their lawsuit to get equal pay for their incredible work on the field. And of course, as we're talking about that, I'm thinking about the National Women's Soccer League, and they're boycotting games this week because of the sexual abuse scandals. So there are so many challenges, so many injustices that we are talking about. And we've talked about a lot of these issues on the show, Sri. So one thing I'm proud about, the community that you've built up, that we've built over the years, we can handle these types of issues. We can raise really significant, really important, have important conversations. And this conversation with Jarrett is just the latest. So I'm going to bring...
Just off the top of my head, when we had Judge Aquilina with us, she's the one who put away Larry Nassar.
Yes.
And we had Abigail Pesta, who wrote the book that helped document what happened with Larry Nassar and the horrible USA gymnastics failure.
And on racism, I had a special show when we talked about the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, 2 years back, but also covering issues of race with Sunny Slaughter when I went to her place and we did the 1619 project. Just very powerful shows. So I want to bring back Jarrett and have him unmute his mic so we can bring him back and hear from him. Jarrett, are you ready? If you can hear us, we just need you to unmute, Jarrett.
Can you unmute, Jarrett? Can you unmute?
There we go. So Jarrett, we gave you a chance to think about final thoughts. We can hear you. Final thoughts about your book and your life, and then a pro tip for writers, if you can. Over to you. It seems like we're having trouble with Jarrett's audio.
I don't think he's hearing us. Let's try one more time.
Absolutely.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Jarrett.
All right.
Final thoughts about your
and
book
my wife
and your
Rupa
life.
Says hi, Rupa.
Hi, Rupa. Let's get that book out.
Over to you, Jarrett. Final thoughts on your book and your story, and then a pro tip for writers.
Sorry, Jarrett. Can you hear us, Jarrett?
I can. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jarrett.
Go ahead.
We want to hear your final thoughts and also a pro tip for writers. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's my pro tip for writers, and then I'll get into my final tip. Start writing. That's my pro tip for writers, because your brain carries so much thought. It's hard sometimes to go back to that thought. Start writing. Shaka Senghor gave me that advice. John Grissom gave me that advice when I was trying to figure out how to write a book. I remember John Grissom sending me an email. He says, look, your story is an important one. Start writing. So that's my encouragement. That's my pro tip for writers. Start writing. Go back, read, edit, keep writing. That's the best tip I can give for writers. Here is my final tip. I want to use a story, and it'll be a short one. So me and my wife are out and we're traveling, and we're in a space where it's a multitude of different people. Someone was dropping their cell phone, and you know the catch where you try to catch it before it hit the ground. Everyone in this vicinity was looking and cheering for this man to catch his phone, because we know the value of that phone when it hits the ground and when it cracks, and then you have to try to replace it. They caught the phone, and everybody was, whew, even though it wasn't our phone. So I made that point to say this: until we, no matter what your background is, start to see the value of those we are placing and warehousing in our prison, especially the wrongfully convicted, until we start to see the value in them, only then we will all care about making sure that they don't hit the ground and crack, because we know their value. This book, Redeeming Justice, it is an attempt, actually, it is a tool to get folks to see the importance and the humanity of all folks, all colors, all creeds, especially the most vulnerable who we see come in and out of our prison systems. I want to thank you guys for this opportunity. On behalf of the South Side of Chicago and every young Black boy who sat on his steps and prayed one day that he would have this platform, I'm doing this for you. Redeeming Justice was written for you. Obama, put this book in that new library, okay? Thank you guys, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jarrett. Appreciate it. Want to just let you know that as you're talking, comments are still coming in. If you have a moment, I just want to celebrate with you. Ellen saying amazing story. I will support. She's looking forward to reading the book. Annette's going to watch the videos. Sunny Slaughter, just thank you to the team with every fiber of the being. She talks about how these untapped stories, lives, and issues that impact Black and brown people more than any other medium anywhere. And she's forever grateful for the work. And thank you for helping us do this work. Apollo, amen. The importance of an individual's value. Mary C. Curtis, a friend of the show, former guest on multiple shows. Thank you for your insights on the topic and on writing. Laura Silverman, so powerful. My mom coming in again with saluting you. And Sherry, very informative, and thank you for these messages this morning. So just know how powerful this has been for our friends and our audience. And thank you again for letting us stream to your Facebook page and your Twitter account to share this experience with your friends and followers as well.
Thank you guys. I thank you guys again for this opportunity. Sharing the story creates the inspiration for others to keep this country the greatest one on earth.
Absolutely.
Thank you for everything, Jarrett. And look forward to breaking bread with you in Chicago or
Indeed.
Here, depending where we see each other next.
We will connect very soon.
Or if you ever get to DC, let me know.
Will do. All right, guys.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.